Big changes apparently are coming to the Uber app that most drivers should favor. At least that's what one source says. What up, folks? Once again, it is indeed your guy, Tim, with another ride-sharing video. Now, this one is going to be a reaction video of sorts to another content creator we all know and love, Sergio, the rideshare guy. And I will link the video in the description because I definitely believe it's important for most of us rideshare drivers to watch. But he attended a gathering among some of the executives of Uber, and they're going to make a hell of a lot of changes. And Sergio was allowed to present some points and ask some questions, and this is what he's coming back with. I want to give you some of my pointers on it, what I think is good, bad, and why I believe they've made these changes. So we're going to start out by going through the changes. Obviously, major changes with the app, so we will start seeing these. Some of them do not start until early next year. So the obvious question is, are these changes going to make us more damn money? If there is one thing that drivers are constantly pissed off about, and the reason for probably one of the greatest turnover rates in any form of employment in existence, the pay is shit. So will these changes make us more money? We're going to talk about that at the end of the video. I got an interesting take on that. Number one, the app will now clearly show the pickup and drop off address. Obviously a good thing. You don't have to finagle with the app to figure out where the hell you're going. My opinion, this should have been an issue. This should have been from day one. As a subcontractor, before taking on any type of job, whether you're dealing with shoveling snow, plumbing contracts, whatever the case may be, you should know the entire details involved in performing the service. Fact is, for most of Uber's history, you didn't know where the hell the passenger was going until you got up on them and swiped that you arrived and they were in the car. Now all of a sudden you find out they want to go out of town somewhere or to a neighborhood you don't want shit to do with. I cannot tell you personally, having driven off and on between jobs since 2014, how many Uber passengers I have kicked out of my damn car because they wanted to go somewhere where it was simply not profitable for me to go to. For instance, let's say you live in the Los Angeles area. Somebody wants to get in your car and go to San Bernardino, where you're not likely to get a trip coming back anytime soon. It's not advantageous for you to take the trip if you got to drive all the way back at your own expense. Every driver in the business has had these trips where somebody decides to use Uber or Lyft, for you folks doing Lyft as well, to go out of town. And you know, taking them out of town or taking them to a distant suburb almost guarantees you're not going to have a return trip coming back, meaning that whole trip back is at your expense. I've said it before, Uber should have told drivers the entire details of the drop-off location from day one. Not doing that leaves folks like me to kick you the hell out of my car, and that's really bad customer service. You've been waiting for a driver to show up 10 minutes, 20 minutes. I had a woman say she had been waiting for an hour, and I was telling her to get out of my car in the winter. She didn't want to get out. She didn't have a choice, if you ask me. But nevertheless, the passengers deserve a driver that is going to arrive knowing where they're going and already has committed to taking on the job. Otherwise, you're going to have driver after driver showing up, kicking people out. So letting drivers know where the hell these people want to go, that's a good come up, but it should have been there from day one. Also, in the trips, you have to click accept now. We all know we're in the app or we're on our phone using it for some other reason. A trip pops up and you try to get the trip out of the way so you can finish texting or updating your status on Facebook. And simply moving it means you accepted the damn trip. Now, once again, this is eliminating bad customer service because if you didn't want to accept the trip, now you're going to go to the Uber app and cancel it. They have a section that says accepted trip by accident. Well, how does that reflect upon the passenger? Passenger's trying to request a ride. All of a sudden, he's told, okay, this car is coming to get you. And then, boom, the trip gets canceled. So they have made it now so that that accident doesn't happen. And obviously, another issue is canceling trips can hurt folks who are trying to get top tier diamond, platinum status and all this other bullshit that comes along with a good acceptance rate. In my humble opinion, that should be, I don't want to say illegal, but the government should step in. And you know why I'm saying that? Because we are independent contractors. You should not be getting punished or rewarded for accepting trips. That's an employer-employee relationship. As a subcontractor who is truly free to work on his own, there shouldn't be any punishment or reward for taking trips. And the fact is, if you start canceling trips, you go down from the diamond status, platinum, you start dropping because your acceptance rate is dropping. That's punishing people, virtually at least, for not accepting trips. That should be removed. And that's also why Uber has lost a lot of lawsuits in some of these states like California, claiming that they were treating the drivers like employees, but listing them as subcontractors. And I believe strongly lawsuits are at the base of a hell of a lot of these changes. So when you folks ask, well, why the hell would they all of a sudden do all these things in our best interest? They're getting a shit suit out of them. That one right there, rewarding drivers for taking trips and punishing somewhat drivers for not taking them, meaning they've taken enough trips to be a diamond status driver or they're in the top tier. All of a sudden they reject a few unprofitable trips and all of a sudden their tiers or status drops. You're punishing them. You can't do that if they're not your employee. That's one reason why I believe they made that change. But like I said, good customer service as well. It's really wrong for the passenger. All of a sudden see these people accepting them and then dropping because you don't make the app accept trips simply by touching the damn screen. Next, detailed maps and ability to notify other drivers of road blockages and detours. Obviously, this is good for the simple fact that Uber and Lyft do not pay you when you're stuck in a road blockage or detour or have to spend more time to get from point A to point B than what they've told you. This is a continuation with the upfront fares bullshit. So if they tell you we're going to pay you $5 for a trip that takes 10 minutes, road blockage or traffic makes that trip take 20 minutes, they don't pay you shit extra. So it does help to at least have drivers letting you know I was just down that street and you can't go that way, or it's a one-way street, or there's a police, issue going on, go around or whatever. Now, I don't know how they're going to do it, but let's be real. Uber and Lyft, the last thing they want is drivers talking to each other, because we know they function and make a killing off of lack of transparency. The more drivers can speak to each other, the more we start working together, and it's not in their best interest. So whatever they do in the app to allow you to tell another driver there's a blockage, you ain't gonna be to really text that driver and say any kind of words to them because they don't want us talking to each other. Next, unjust deactivations. This is a big one. Now, I strongly believe, as I mentioned earlier, follow the money is a reason why they made a lot of these changes. They're getting a shit suit out of them. Unjust deactivations is where they have now, according to Sergio in the video I'm reacting to, and like I said, feel free to watch the video I provided in the link in the description. Uber is now admitting passengers are giving drivers horrible ratings intentionally to hopefully get their fare credited back. A driver picked me up and scared the shit out of me. He was driving 90 miles in a school zone or something like that. So that at the end of the day, Uber will feel sympathetic to the passenger and credit them their trip back. They're willing to destroy your entire ability to drive and earn a living so that they can get their $5 or $10 credited back. Uber now admits that passengers are doing this, probably by way of knowing a hell of a lot of passengers that complain about driver A, later is complaining about driver B, C, and D. Got a passenger that's constantly filing complaints against drivers, all different types of drivers. Yeah, it's probably something wrong with the damn passenger. But They're now going to take into consideration seniority, how long you've been driving. As a driver, what is your rating like? How many trips you got under your belt? You got 10,000 trips under your belt. Nobody's ever complained that you were drunk. Maybe this is a bullshit complaint. Perhaps we see that this passenger filed 4 or 5 other drunk driving complaints on the last 3 trips he did. Yeah, maybe the passenger is the problem. But once again, as I stated, I believe the fact that they're getting a shit suit out of them. What is the other guys, rideshare professor and all of them that actually fight on behalf of drivers to get them reactivated that's been wrongfully deactivated, and they get them back pay. So in other words, if you can show that you generally earn $1,000 a week, which few drivers do nowadays, but if you earn $1,000 a week, you get deactivated from the app for some bullshit, and it takes you 3-4 weeks to get back on. They are now taking the companies to court and maybe getting a percentage of the $3,000 or $4,000 they lost by not being on the app for the bullshit. Uber is getting hit up with a lot of those suits, which I believe, once again, to turn off the spigot of flowing money. They're like, well, maybe we need to stop this now that there are folks online promoting that you sue the company for bullshit deactivations. Keep it up. Good work for those who are involved in that. And last but not least, they're actually now going to advise the customers, the passengers, you can be deactivated for reporting bullshit. It's your 3rd drunk driving complaint in a fucking week. You're not getting in the car with all of these drunk drivers. You're making up shit. So I do like the idea of the potential of letting the customer know you can get in trouble yourself for constantly making wrongful deactivations. And here's a kicker. Here's one that's really interesting. According to Sergio and what came out of this meeting, they're now going to potentially pay for drivers. If you're accused of being high or drunk, they'll pay for you to go to a local lab and take a drug test. Now, I've taken those, and many of you folks who work in, 1099 jobs, most 1099 gigs, couriers and delivery service require you to take these tests. They usually cost about $35 to $50 to take them. My guess is if Uber has to pay $35 to $50 for every drunk, high, inebriated driver complaint they get, they're going to really start backing off when customers claim that the driver was out of it. They're not going to be taking that shit as serious. They're not going to be spending $35 to $50 on all of these tests over and over again. Now, obviously, they'll get them at a discount rate because there'll be so many of them, but it is money out of their pocket, and we know these greedy fucks don't like to lose money. So we'll see how that goes. I'll be curious to see what it takes, what type of complaints need to be made against a driver before they send them in for a paid drug test. Probably will have to be multiple. If you're doing trips, let's say you're doing a trip, started driving at 8 o'clock, at 9 o'clock somebody reports that you're drunk. My guess is they're going to see what the next passenger says, and the next, and the next. You go through the whole rest of that day and nobody complain that you're drunk, I believe they'll just let you go. Now, obviously that could be a big problem, but we know Uber and Lyft will, particularly Uber, is willing to deal with the problems first and see if they can get away with it. So we'll see how that turns out. But I do like the change that they're letting passengers know you can't just be making up bullshit. You will lose your ability to request trips through this app if you're constantly trying to get free shit by hurting drivers. Next, this is huge. Number 4, I've talked about it on many videos, picking up passengers named Boo Boo and Honey and, Carpet Muncher at 3 o'clock in the morning. Who the hell, what girl driver wants to pick up Carpet Muncher at 3 a.m.? Now the passengers will be required to verify their ID using your government name and things like that. Now, there is some pushback on this. Let's say you got a really attractive passenger in the vehicle, and it wouldn't be hard to imagine a driver wanting to know something about the chick, try to find where she's at on social media or something like that. There are people, now let's say they just use a first name and last initial, or vice versa, whatever the case may be, to make it harder to find a person. The problem is some names are very unique, where you don't need to know the first and last name of the person. Just one of them. You know, if you got a LaQuisha and you happen to live in Billings, Montana, it ain't a hell of a lot of LaQuishas in Billings, Montana. You don't need to know her last name. You go in there and put LaQuisha in there, that'll probably tell you where she is. So I'm assuming some folks with unique spelling names, where if your last name is Smith, it don't matter. But if you got a unique last name or unique first name, they may not want to put it in there. But we'll see how it turns out. But I do like the fact that you cannot they're going to make it where you cannot put in nicknames and all kinds of bullshit that does nothing for the driver. I got carjacked. What was his name, sir? Slick. That tells the cops nothing. And we know Uber and Lyft are hesitant to work with law enforcement in a lot of cases. I've done those videos as well, where you had detectives trying to solve a murder, and Uber is using privacy rights to protect the passenger's rights. So it will help. Next, cell phones will be used as cloud-based dash cams. This is awesome. Now, obviously, it depends a lot on the quality of the phone you're using. You got some old bullshit Nokia from the 90s or whatever the hell you're using. You got a BlackBerry or some of those older smartphones that have poor camera quality. Well, if your life depends on it, your camera quality may be what is needed to get you or your family justice. So if you got a bullshit camera, that could be on you. But this is for folks who do not have a dash cam. It's highly recommended that you have a dash cam to begin with. But I like this for the simple fact that the way they have it set up, once you start recording, your video goes in the cloud. Why is that incredibly important? Because the person trying to whoop your ass, carjack you, sexually assault you, cannot simply take the camera and run off with the evidence. I did a story of a female driver who was indeed carjacked and murdered by her passenger. And he did reach up and grab the dash cam in an attempt to take the evidence with him. He actually successfully took the evidence and threw it off in a ditch not far from where he murdered her, in the same ditch. And law enforcement fortunately was able to find the dash cam and retrieve literally the murder of this woman on her own dash cam. But once again, if he had kept that camera and ran off with it, that evidence would not be available. So the fact that Uber is now going to allow your video footage to go straight to the cloud means that even if your assailant takes your phone, they don't get the video evidence. Something happens to you, your family can hopefully retrieve the information from Uber. We'll see how that turns out. But these are really good turnarounds. But do they make you money? And before we talk about whether you'll make more money from this stuff, I have to be a little bit skeptical on using your phone as a dash cam for one reason. Will Uber attempt to spy on what's going on in your vehicle through your phone? Let's say, for instance, a passenger we were talking about earlier, a passenger suggests that you're inebriated, drunk, or high on drugs while driving, or using your phone, whatever the case may be. Will Uber be able to access the video while you're on that trip, even though you didn't give them the right to do it? I don't know. I don't know if it's legal to do so, but we're talking about Uber, and they have a lengthy history of doing shit that many would consider is barely legal. So just wanted to let you know that, because if you don't want to use your phone and you already have your own dash cam, might get to the point, just like with laptops, where you're putting a piece of black tape over the cover of your phone because you don't trust the damn company. And for those who have poor camera quality, at least you would have audio of it. So somebody is carjacking you, give me your damn vehicle, give it up, that type of shit would at least be on audio. But it would behoove you to have a quality camera if you're going to be using that service. So to conclude this video, I know it got to be a bit long, but the question is, so is any of this stuff going to make us more money? My humble opinion, I don't see a lot here that's going to solve the biggest damn complaint we all have, and that's the shitty pay. But it does solve a lot of other complaints. The only way I can see you making more money, it gives you more cherry picking ability. And that is automatically knowing where a passenger is going is incredibly valuable, because it doesn't make you waste time and gas driving to pick somebody up that you don't want to take. As I stated, I've kicked a lot of people out of my vehicle for wanting to go to neighboring suburbs and towns. All of the money I spent driving to pick them up and tell them I'm not taking you here, that's all lost. So knowing where they're going to begin with allows me to save, what would easily add up to be several dollars per shift in fuel. So that's is not making you more money, but it's preventing you from wasting more money. Same thing with the app being more detailed and allowing the passengers to communicate in regards to detours, traffic, road blockages, and things like that. It's not going to make you money, but if it can allow you ahead of time not to take, ineffective paths to get to your location, well, then it stops you from wasting unnecessary gas or extending trips longer than they need to be, because now don't go down that road, or you're going to be stuck over there for 10 minutes. If you know that information, it saves you a little bit of money. But I don't hear shit in this about them actually giving us more money for the trips or not giving us unprofitable trips. Had somebody give me in the comments an example of a trip that was dozens of miles away. I'd have to look it up, but it was 30, 40 miles away to pick up a passenger going less than 5 miles, and the trip paid like $10. They should fix the app that just does not even come up to a driver. I mean, trips that are incredibly unprofitable, and we've all had them, drive 15 minutes to pick up somebody who's going to be in your car for 3. They could easily make their algorithm or whatever the hell they do with the math so that doesn't have to happen. But anyway, I just wanted to run these by you folks. I encourage you, check out Sergio's video listed in the comment section if you haven't already seen it, or in the link in the description. Let me know what you guys think. What did they miss out on? Obviously, pay we get, but what other shit do you believe they missed out on that we've been asking for a very long time? Let your boy know in the comments. As always, subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.